Good afternoon and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council's Cablecast Post Agenda on Older Adult Wellness for Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. And for the record, we're joined today by Council Members Warwick and Charland. Other members might be joining us shortly. And so I'm really excited to have this post agenda today because I think this will probably be the first of many conversations. Not that this is the first ever, but the first in 2025 that we're talking about older adults and in Pittsburgh and the region. Why is this important? Well, as we're going to hear as our panelists and the invited guests share with us, people are living longer than ever, and Allegheny County is set to have the second largest population of adults 65 and older in the country. And we will continue to see a dramatic growth of older adults in the next decade. And I think as we'll hear, and as maybe some of us know, we're nowhere near ready. So we need to start getting ready or continue the effort to be ready. Not only to welcome everyone to our city and our county, to take care of those who are here, to welcome newcomers to the city and the region, to, if we do this right, attract those who want to relocate here because of our great reputation as a great place to live or retire to or live as an older adult. If we're doing it right, and I think we'll probably hear from places like Rochester, Michigan, who are doing it right and are attracting newcomers, it's another way that we might not be thinking about now to grow our population while we're taking care of people of all ages. So although we can probably cover, any number of items on this topic more generally, just to kind of set some boundaries of what we will cover and what we won't, well, we could potentially cover, have one just on older adults and transportation, but we're not really talking about that today. We could do one on, older adults and aging and our own infrastructure and accessibility, but we're also really not talking about that today. We're going to get into some statistics. We're going to do a lay of the land of where we are in the city and the county. We'll hear more about the Area Agency on Aging services, some of our various senior center services, both here in the city and outside of the city in Plum. And I want to note that, and I'll underscore this at the end, I think this has to be a multi-governmental approach, multi-levels of government. So want to acknowledge county council members were invited, and we will continue to work with them. We know that county council is not a full-time job, so it's often difficult for them to make time during the day when they have other jobs and they're working on other things, and they have a council meeting tonight, I believe. But this has to be an all levels of government approach. So we know that they're invited. Hopefully some of them are tuning in online, and would welcome the opportunity to go to county council if they'd like to host another one and have a collaborative conversation. So with that, I will turn it over to our invited guests. And I think I'll introduce everybody and then we'll go in that order unless you'd like to go in a different order. But we have, we're fortunate today to have Dr. Shanna Tharp-Gilliam, Director of the Area Agency on Aging, often called AAA, the other AAA. And we have Karen Hochberg, who is the Executive Director of the Plum Community Center. We have Luann, our own city's Luann Haran, Assistant Director of Senior Programs of our Healthy Active Living Centers at the City of Pittsburgh's Parks and Recreation. And we have Jenny Jarofsik, CEO of Lifespan. I'd also like to note before we turn it over to our guests that we have been joined by Councilwoman Deb Gross and Councilman Kahari Mosley. So with that, please take it away. Dr. Gilliam, would you like to begin?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for inviting us here today. We are very much looking forward to this being one of many conversations. As you were saying, this is going to require multiple levels of government, and as well as our communities and our businesses all working together to address this important issue. So this is the title of our presentation is Meeting the Moment, a Countywide Strategy for Senior Services. Next slide. Before we launch into the specifics of the Allegheny County Department of Human Services Area Agency on Aging. And specifically, as you mentioned, we're going to be focusing today on the senior centers. But before we go into that, there were just some contextual facts that I wanted to lay out for you. I had the opportunity to attend a national conference, U.S. Aging, which happens every year. And if anyone is interested, let me know. It's an amazing opportunity to learn about what's going on in the country in aging services. But in one of the plenary sessions, we learned some important facts that I wanted to share with you. So first off, people are living longer than we ever have before. The increase of life expectancy has shifted the scales of population demographics in our country. But unfortunately, living longer does not mean living better. And Allegheny County is actually aging faster, as you said, than the preponderance of other municipalities of our size. So just to give you a little information on that, this is a slide that shows the life expectancy and how you can see it's up and to the right. We've been consistently increasing from 1860 to 2020. Next slide. And what has this done to our population? Now, we know that some of the fundamental benefits of federal government, state government, are really predicated on there being more people at younger ages than there are at the top of the pyramid, so that we can continue to give taxes and put money into the system, and then those who are drawing out hard-earned tax money, hard-earned money that they've put in, but there are fewer of them at the top of that pyramid. But what we can see that the anticipation is that over the next decade, the next few decades, there's going to be a major shift in our population. We're going to have many, many more people who are at those older ages who are going to be beneficiaries of some of the public assistance than we've had in the past. And this is going to put a strain on our system. Next slide. Now, living longer does not mean living better. This visual shows you the life expectancy for 7 countries, and the United States is the third pillar. We can see that when we look at Russia, China, the UK, Canada, Spain, and Japan, we're roughly at the short side of healthy life expectancy. And you can see the orange section shows that on average, Americans are living 12.4 years in poor health towards the ends of our lives. And that number is among the highest in the other countries. Next. So what does this mean? When we look at Allegheny County, you can see here, this is a demographic that I actually pulled from the report that was done by the University of Pittsburgh. And you can see that Allegheny County is the blue, which is in the middle there, but Pittsburgh is at 20.9% for the percentage of population 65 and over. And you can see that the United States is only at 16.8. So as we mentioned, this is just an illustrative of the fact that our region is, by comparison and percentage-wise, older than the rest of the country. Now, we're going to go through the next slides pretty quickly because I want you to see a pretty neat illustration. People, again, go back and forth for me with those slides so they can see that. People always have said silver tsunami. So do you see, isn't that cool? This is the change in population growth from 1990 to 2030. And you can see, go back to, there we go. So you can see here that in 1950, there was a 37% increase in people born under 15. Now, that is what we know as the baby boom. And what that did was it actually created an entire economy around baby food. Gerber, instant baby food, it was not a thing before the 50s and the 60s. So just like the birth of the baby boomers created a multi-billion-dollar industry, go ahead and hit those slides for me. As that population ages up, we see that wave is going to have a similar impact on the economy and on our culture. Next slide. So what does that mean? This is an unprecedented demographic shift, and we're going to need a different approach to leadership. Now, the Area Agency on Aging is here. Our mission and vision is to support safe and healthy well-being for older adults, for people who are 60 and older. And you can see here the statistics. 27% of Allegheny County is over 60 years old. And you can also see that we're anticipating a 40% increase by the year of 2030. Next slide. So what do? There are services that the Area Agency on Aging provides that really are not provided by anyone else at the scale at which we do it. For example, the Area Agency on Aging is the only agency that is mandated to provide protective services. And when I talk about protective services, I mean these are reports of abuse and neglect of older adults that we investigate, and we actually do the work of moving people into safe environments. Similarly, our senior line, which is sometimes referred to as information and assistance, we get over 50,000 phone calls every year. And when a person calls into the senior line, we walk them through a process, an assessment to understand their need and to also direct them to resources that can help to provide them support. And I will be providing the phone number for the senior line at the end of this presentation on the final slide. And then additionally, in-home supports. There are individuals who actually go into the homes of older adults to help them with activities of daily living, brushing their hair, brushing their teeth, getting dressed, cooking meals, and perhaps helping them with things like shopping and light housekeeping. That's one of the other services that the Area Agency on Aging provides. And I am very proud because even though nationally there is a workforce shortage for direct care workers, we were able to use some of the innovations that we're not going to talk about today, but I just want to give you a teaser. We were able to use workforce and economic levers to drive additional workers, 55 new workers, into that line of work where they're now able to create a living wage for their families, and we were able to reduce the wait list by 70% this past year, down to only 143 seniors. Now that's 143 too many, but we're very proud of that work. Next slide. So why your support matters. I've given some indication that there are economic drivers that could really be leveraged as assets for our region. If we took a different approach to how we are funding and directing senior services and prioritizing senior services. There's also a connection for each of your constituents. There's a later slide that focuses on senior centers to show how many older adults in each of the city districts are actually attending the senior centers. And there's a comprehensive array of services. We want to make sure that you're aware of what it is that we provide so that you can make sure that you direct your constituents to the right place. And your leadership is critical. Next slide. So I'm going to demonstrate the collaborative approach that we have to doing this work. We have 3 of our senior center administrators who are here, and we've been working together over the past year to identify best practices in our own system, but also across the country. What are some of the strategies and approaches that we can bring back to our region? And how can we work together to do that? Next slide, please.
Who's next? Is it
That's
me
you.
to take
Yep,
up?
that's you, Karen.
All right. The key points that we want to make as senior centers, we're a part of a network of county focal point senior centers. There's 40 centers across the county. And the key points to make are the fact that the money that we get, the funding that we get to do information and referral, we're like the front door of connecting seniors to city, county, and state services that are available for seniors. We also provide the daily congregant meals. Some of us provide Meals on Wheels deliveries. And what we do is funded through state and federal dollars, and we are measured. We can tell you what we do, and we like what we do, and there's great impact on the adults who come through our door. We saw that during COVID. The isolation to the growing tsunami of the people who may sit at home watching TV is going to be a great impact on health. Even though we have good health systems here, we have got to be ready to make sure that we're funding senior centers and using senior centers to continue to build community. So I think the next one is, this is the global look at the numbers of what seniors were served, or this is the district, this is the percentage.
That's the city, county district numbers. So this was a slide I put in there, so I'll take this one.
Good.
So actually what I had our ATP, our analytics team at DHS pull were the numbers of seniors who are accessing senior services. So the services I mentioned about nutrition, in-home support, protective services, that's the number by council district. And then in the second column is the number who are active at the senior centers in each of your districts. So you can see that senior centers serve seniors in every district. Say that 5 times fast. Mm-hmm. Next slide, please.
This is the slide. Dr. G got funding for us, for all the senior center directors, to create like an innovation lab. We've been meeting for a year. We did site visits in other areas. We looked at how we can collaborate among centers to save money, to pull resources together. This is a look at where people are aging in the county and the age by municipalities. And you see that a lot of the aging is taking place in the suburban districts as well. So that is something to be aware of. And then there's a map that also shows where senior centers are within Allegheny County, which is right there. And you can see the concentration of where they're located. So let's keep going. So this is one of the things I will tell you, that when someone comes to our centers, they swipe in and we know what they do, whatever activities they do. And Luann, you can jump in and share this information as well. So we can tell you how many meals we served, how many people came for congregant lunch, how many people played bingo, how many fitness programs they've attended. And we are paid incentive-wise to encourage well-rounded participation at these centers, lunch and learns, mental health fitness, physical fitness. We have to meet certain milestones in order to receive our funding.
And the purpose of this slide is really to show you the scale. I mentioned that there really is no other agency or company or private or public that does the scale of work that we do at the Area Agency on Aging. We have 135 staff members, and there are just over 80 contracted providers. And that is in addition to the senior centers that we're talking about today. But when you look at the big picture, that's 500,000 meals and 250,000 meals that are being served at our senior centers, and over $1 million in fresh fruits and vegetables vouchers that are distributed through the senior centers, and we get those funds through the Department of Agriculture. Next slide. And just another data slide for your back pocket. It just shows in each of the quarters how the 11,000 older adults were kind of spaced across the 4 quarters. Next slide. All right, I think Luann, you're going to tell us a little bit about some of the
hello everyone.
experiences.
Thank you for having us today. let me first introduce, I brought some seniors with us today. So I'm like, well, what kind of meeting? We need to have some seniors in the audience so they can listen in. They're an important part of our message.
I have some sitting at the table, but go ahead.
I know.
I resemble
Count
that
me
one,
in,
Mark.
count me in as well. Count me in. So
Does she call them they?
that's right.
Yeah.
So I just want to acknowledge that we have seniors from Hazelwood Senior Program and Glen Hazel that are so happy to be here today. Well, yeah, no, that's it. It was a matter of transportation, and we provided it, and we brought them here. And Catherine Vargas, the Director of Parks, is also here, so she's listening in as well. I think I have everything clear. Am I missing? I can't see behind me. I'm sorry if I'm missing anyone.
I can't see what you're saying either.
No, that's okay. What I want to mention here today is that so I've been thinking about this a lot and what I wanted to talk about today and speak on. And so I can tell you, the first thing I want to tell you is that our centers, city centers, Allegheny County centers, we're doing the same type of work. We're all in this. Our seniors will tell you the same stories. We provide the same meals across the board, same programs. They're just in different settings that we have places for our seniors where they go. And here in the city, we have, I wrote this down so I don't forget, 90 distinct communities where we serve the seniors in Pittsburgh. And doing that, so I want to talk about, we have different nationalities, we have different needs, different income levels, and that's the same for the county. So I want to include them as well, not just in the city of Pittsburgh. They have the same challenges of what the services we're trying to provide. And in doing that, the city of Pittsburgh, we operate 4 focal points, and I've talked about that many times when I've come here. And there are main centers where we receive our funding from those 4 centers. Then we have our other centers that are pods, and they roll up to each one of those focal points. So we do have a lot of centers. We have 11 and 2 satellites, but one of our satellites we're still working on providing services there. So I want to talk about I have stories to tell, and I want to read you a story, and it's up on the board screen right now. I brought 2, and these are from seniors. It's a very brief message that we got, and I think you'll find it interesting what people are telling. This story could be at any of our senior centers, Allegheny County or our senior center. The person writes, at the urging of a friend and neighbor, I joined others in my community at a healthy active living center. I live alone, independently, and while not truly alone, I was spending too much time staring at the wall and reminiscing over the past. Now, 2 years later, I'm enjoying the companionship of lots of new friends at lunch, participating with them in activities and entertainment, as well as learning good things about healthy living, senior safety, senior benefits, and other educational programs. And the luncheon meals are very good and nutritional. Best of all, the staff members. I certainly respect them and number them among my many good friends. So thank you, City Parks. My life has definitely been improved by my association with you. These are the stories that we hear. I go into centers all the time and visit, and I ask seniors, how did you get here? I want to know what drew them into our centers. They all have about the same story. They're home by themselves. We have widows, we have widowers that for the first time in their lives are alone. They find themselves alone, and they don't know what to do. Either a friend, a neighbor, or just they get the courage themselves to walk through our doors to be a part of our senior center, and they'll never look back. It was the best thing that they could do to improve their lives and their quality of life. I could tell you a story of a woman told me she was riding a trolley every day past our Beachview Center. She finally started asking the staff member, hey, I see that building. I see you going there. What is it that you do inside that building? So they began to talk about all the things that happens, and they invited her to come into the center to participate and see what's going on. Just stop in. And she did. And she loves it there and will not go. And she's so happy she spoke to this woman on the trolley that day. Mm-hmm. There was so much that we offer, so many programs, so many things that they learn educationally. And the biggest thing I would tell you is the companionship that we have in our senior centers. You don't find that. They come there, they're no longer lonely. They have friends, true friends. They volunteer at our centers. And they are really a new person, a changed person by attending one of the senior centers. And that's all of our senior centers, not just city, Allegheny County. I think you could go to those senior centers as well and hear the same stories from people. That's how valuable. I want to talk about the value in a senior center and the services that we provide. Our funding, let me just real quick about funding, because I know we weren't going to talk too much about that. We receive two sources in the city for our funding. We receive community development block grant funding, CDBG money, and we receive funding from the Area Agency on Aging from the county, as the other centers do as well. And that's a pool of money that we receive by attendance numbers. That's how it's divided up. There has to be some way to figure out who gets what and how much. That number is getting lowered because there isn't money. Other people want that money for other things. You know, we get money for the lottery. Well, other people see, hey, that's a lot of money. We would like to have a piece of that too. So there's things in that regard that we need help. You know, people go to your state. No, we can't. You can't do that. How valuable our senior centers are to get that message out. And the thing about that, and we are going there again. We are going next week to talk to the senators. We're going to meet with 3 people, and we're going to speak all about all of this and what's taking place, especially Medicare, Medicaid, which the seniors are scared. What's happening today, they're very worried. They're very concerned. How are we going to live? I tell this story. Some people come to our center. The meal is fabulous. I mean, it is so good. That's drawing people in. It's delicious. It's nutritious. There's soups, healthy salads now, and the people like it. They come in for that meal. But in doing that, in some cases, I'm going to tell you, the economics out in the world today, that might be their only meal. They don't have money to get groceries because the prices are so high. We need to be there. We need to make sure that people who retire, as we talked about, because they love Pittsburgh, they want to stay in their homes, and we do that. We were able to keep them in their homes because of the services we provide, trying to keep them healthy. Big thing I talked about, that loneliness and companionship. That makes us all feel better, right? When we have people to talk to, and we form really great friendships. 3 of my ladies I talked to in the back, they watch out for each other. They take care of each other. They support each other. And I talked to them when they came in, and they totally agree. Yes, we look out for each other. One of the things that we talked about, and we'll talk more later, is the transportation issues. That's on all of us. It's very difficult with transportation. I hate to say it, but I'm just going to mention it real quick. The PRT and the buses, that's a big issue. We need to see what we can do, keep some of those routes going for our seniors who depend on that to get to the grocery store, depend on that to come to a senior center, to have their friendships, do the things they like to do, and get their meal. The other thing we do the farmers market vouchers. That allows them, they get $50 when they come, and we're going to have that soon coming up. That allows them to go and buy groceries or fruits and vegetables, healthy fruits and vegetables, through the farmers that sell their goods at one of the city farmers markets, or at little local producers and stuff and farms and stuff outside of Pittsburgh. So there's a lot of fabulous things that we do. They're really important. It's very important work. And as it's growing, as Dr. Gilliam said, it's growing. The numbers are going to go astronomically high. We're going to be there. As we talk to kidded around about who at the table, what age you're going to be, and how we're going to be old too at some point. And what's going to happen? We need those benefits in some cases. Our elderly people, not everybody is a high standard of living, right? They're not going to be able to survive. If we cut everything and people don't fight, like we're here today, fighting for the seniors in the city, we need to help them. That's why we're all here. That's why we're all talking about the needs. So I hope that all of you listen, can talk to more people. We're trying to get the message out. Like I said, we're going to go to DC. We're going to pass along the message as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I'll talk too long. We'll keep going.
You know what?
Thank you
And
very
that's why we asked Luann to tell that part of the story,
Yeah.
because she feels it in her heart, and you can hear it in her words. So thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I need to clarify, so the farmers market vouchers, those come directly from the Department of Agriculture. Right. And the Department of Agriculture has told us that they are cutting the amount to $25. That is nothing that we did. If we had our druthers, it would be higher, but it's not money that it was 50.
50.
So they're cutting it, and I just want you to know, because I know that farmers market vouchers are a big deal. Oftentimes, people get a lot of phone calls about farmers market vouchers, and I want you to know from the horse's mouth, well, the rancher of the horses, whatever, is that
Farmer's mouth.
farmer, I can be a farmer.
They're cutting it.
It is being cut at the Department of Agriculture. That is the level that it is being cut at. It is not city, it is not county, it is definitely not Department of Human Services. It is U.S. Department of Agriculture. The second thing that you said I wanted to just follow up on is the importance of public transportation. The first time PRT cut routes, we saw one of our city centers, it was like a devastating cut because they moved the bus stop from South Side, right
Market
by my
House.
office.
Yes.
They moved the bus stop from in front of the senior center, and it dramatically impacted the number of seniors who were coming. So I just wanted you all to know, how important that public transportation is. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Jenny.
I'm Jenny, CEO at Lifespan, and I have the opportunity, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I've earned every one of these white hairs on my head in the service provision that we do. The centers are very aware of the coming tsunami. We've talked about this for a number of years. And one of the things that we did, and the Area Agency on Aging did, was say, how can we change? What do we need to do to be able to meet the coming needs and wants of the people who are now turning into seniors? What do they want? How do we get them? How do we serve them? The whole idea of the Department of Aging and senior centers is prevention, keeping people from isolation, keeping them healthy, keeping them active, independent. And what do we need to do to attract people to come in through that front door? That's what a senior center is. It's the front door to the aging service system. And how do we attract them for people wanting to come in before they need to come in? And we looked around and we said, maybe we can do this different. We can work together, we can partner. We can go and look at how other parts of this country do this. And Dr. G and her team got some money for us to go and look at this. And, Karen alluded to the Senior Center Innovation Laboratory, where we get together and we percolate our ideas and we share with each other. What we call it is SCRIMP, Senior Center Reimagined Project. And so that's what we're doing. How do we reimagine what our centers look like, what they should be doing, how we can attract people? And what we do in the city and what we do in the suburbs we're here for the folks. You know, we're here for people that have needs, that we want to keep in their homes longer. We don't want the Medicaid, the Medicare, those dollars being in a nursing home. Keep them healthy, keep those dollars into the community. So we're looking at things of how do we do this? And our funds, you've heard it through, our funds are kind of stagnant. When we get cost of living, we haven't gotten it for lots of years. So we're trying new ways to do things. We're working together more as partnerships. We're looking for partners in the community, bringing our resources together. The city, I think, does a good job of this when they have their senior centers. They have 2 sources of funding. They get the CDBG grant on top of the county funds. We aren't that lucky in the suburbs. In the county, we get the county money and that's it. But there's also the use of buildings, the use of other resources. But the end game is still, how do we keep people healthy, active, and independent? And so that's what we're working on. We used some of the money to better our facilities with computers and smart TVs for education, for exercise, you know, for learning. But we also said, what are other parts of this country doing? How are they managing this? And so we went and took a look-see. We took some road trips. And what we saw was phenomenal. It was places that get people that want to be there. And they get there when they're 50 years old and 55 years old, and they stay healthy and active until they're 95 and 100. And it's a progression. And so we said, how do we do that? How do we transform where we are now into something like that? And it was like, we need everybody working together on this. Allegheny County is a high density of older adults. We need to be in the front of this. We need to be showing the whole rest of the country what we can do and how we work and keep our older adults healthy longer and in the community.
And there are economic reasons that drive these kinds of decisions. When we went to Rochester, Michigan, we visited the OPC. It's actually an acronym for Old People Center, interestingly.
They changed that name a long time ago.
Yeah, they call it OPC now. But when we looked at this facility, it was truly remarkable. You walk in the door, you have 60, 70, 80-year-olders playing pickleball, waiting in line to play pickleball. I was talking with a man who was walking really tall and strong, and we were having this conversation, and he told me he was 94 years old. And you ask the question, how does this happen? Well, it happens by what Jenny was just saying. When you have 20 years of investment in assets, so that when people enter their 50s, they can start and continue a healthy lifestyle. Then you can end up with 94-year-olds who are vying for a spot on the pickleball court. But what has it done to the region, to that area? The 15 communities, older adult communities, have sprung up around the OPC because people are moving there as a destination for retirement.
When we checked into the hotel in Rochester, the people who checked us in talked about how proud they were that we were coming to see that center. Realtors use that center to recruit people and sell houses. The thing that I would like you all to take away from is we're using our resources very well, and Dr. G has make sure we use the resources that we get well and we're accountable. However, our funding has been flat and it's not likely to grow, so the only way we'll do better is to do more together. And it's going to require elected officials partnering with us to set a strategy across the county, because we also visited Chicago, Evanston, Illinois, which was all funded by the municipality. OPC has tax streams that were enacted in the 3 communities that it serves that helps fund that center, not only the center operations, but also a revenue stream for transportation. They literally, if you live in one of those 3 communities near that center, will take you to a doctor's appointment and bring you to that center. So their funding is different. The other center we visited was Charlottesville, which is completely private, no government or funding whatsoever. I'm a city resident, proud to be, but I run the center out in Plum. I'm lucky compared to some of my compatriots that Plum, someone dedicated the building. So in my budget, I don't have to pay rent, right? Which is a huge cost in some of these centers. So that helps me with the funding stream. We lose money on everything we do. The exercise program, I literally, if I was running a cost center, it cost me $1,000 a month to do silver sneakers and to provide the classes that we do. So we go out, we solicit funds. We, during COVID, because these centers exist, we were able to respond quickly with our Meals on Wheels Greater Pittsburgh. We have sought out foundations to help us with meet the gap in equipment that we necessarily couldn't afford to buy. So moving forward, if we could create centers like OPC throughout the county and the city in joint partnerships, we really can meet the growing needs of people in a way that we haven't imagined in the past. Otherwise, we will continue down the road we are, and it's going, we're in a topsy-turvy time. The announcement that they're going to close Social Security offices are going to impact senior centers. We are going to have to help people get online accounts so that they can get their Social Security. And we step up and do this whenever we're asked. So having that network ready to go, and I will say that the city, I stole your line when I started working at Plum, Healthy Active Living Center, that is really what we're trying to create. So you've been branded and have been along that path long before some of us out in the suburbs. So our hope today is that, you'll help us take the leadership in digging deeper in this, creating a working group that takes foundations, maybe even, a health partner and city, county cooperation to build a system for the future that will work better.
May I add something? I listen to Karen.
I do want to make sure that we're getting to all the council members' questions
Okay.
As well. So maybe final thoughts from everybody, and then, or
Okay.
anyone who has a final thought, and then we'll move to council questions.
Yeah,
I just real quick wanted to add that we collaborate now. We're working on collaboration. For example, we have the Oliver Bathhouse swimming pool, indoor swimming pool is going to open. So we're collaborating with our partners, and they'll be able to come and use our services. We have another senior center that's struggling, so we're collaborating with them to help them provide services inside one of our facilities as well. So we're working on a lot of collaboration between us to help fill some of these gaps, is all I wanted to mention. Important. Okay?
So that ends, that concludes the official presentation. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you all for your
Thank
work.
you. So
Yes.
that just illustrates just how much more we could continue to talk about, any number of topics. I do want to turn it over to members for questions and have a full dialogue there as much as we can. I will go in the order of appearance in the room, and I do want to mention before we do that we've been joined by Councilwoman Cale Smith.
The oldest in the room.
So we'll start with Councilwoman Warwick.
There's the two.
Thanks. You sure you're here already?
I was third.
No?
I
Oh,
was
okay.
third today.
Thank you. So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate this. My mom lives next door to me, and she has dementia, and so I know what it's like, sort of trying to navigate issues with seniors. Well, I guess I'll start with, you talked about transport. I do want to say, so in my district, I noticed that my district's one of the higher numbers in terms of seniors that you're serving, with 1,555 accessing services, and then 688 accessing our senior centers, which is great. We have great facility in Greenfield that actually serves our Chinese community, which is fun. I kind of love that. And then we have the Healthy Active Living Center in Hazelwood, and also satellite services up in Glen Hazel, which is great, in the Housing Authority building up there. There's been some issues over the winter having to do with the building. But, and I know, Luann, you've done some work with the folks in Lincoln Place who do the senior lunches a couple times a month about
Yes.
bringing some
Programs.
programming in there. So that's kind of what I wanted to ask in terms of, you know, I know the transportation has been an issue, and I do wonder, you know, between like folks with disabilities, folks who are just, you know, stuck at home because they, you know, don't feel, you know, they feel nervous about coming out, or you know, access has been spotty, I would say, for a lot of our seniors. It's hard enough just to get access to come in time to get you to a doctor's appointment, much less on a regular basis. And I know that there used to be a shuttle in Squirrel Hill that would go around and pick folks up at Riverview and by, you know, on Beacon, and just, you know, sort of the kind of high density spots where we have a lot of seniors, and that has been canceled. So are there any thoughts about, I mean, I know that we have some vans, and we, while the Glen Hazel satellite was closed, you know, temporarily this winter, we were bringing folks down to the senior center, which is great. But have there been any thoughts about maybe letting people sign up for a route, for even just piloting or piloting something maybe with like a Lyft or an Uber or something like that, where we could get people to, or is that just at this point in time just out of, you know, off the charts in terms of funding?
Well, first off, there are some models around the country that are being used by various services. You mentioned Lyft, Uber. I know that Lyft and Uber, well, Uber specifically, has a program that they are piloting across the country around getting older adults and people who need to get to doctor's appointments and things like that. So I actually did have some initial conversations with them about that and about bringing that here. Then you were talking about maybe like a route of some sort, you know, but that would, of course, you know, require additional funds. But that's the kind of thinking, that's the type of approach that, you know, having support from council members at the city and the county levels, that would be valuable for us. You know, having that type of muscle to, you know, convene transportation agencies that, I don't know, perhaps they have another body of work that they're doing with another part of the municipality that we could bootleg, you know, this type of approach that specifically targeted supports for older adults. That would be a wonderful opportunity for us to have a conversation around those issues. We welcome it.
Is there a better way? Is there another way that we can reimagine a transportation system within the city and within the county with the change in the routing and the access availability? Can we take a fresh look at this?
The inflexibility too of, you know, once the contract is negotiated with access, we're living to that contract. So when that contract is renegotiated, how can that be reimagined? How can we use, you know, low-income senior high-rises that have vans that are idle sitting in a parking lot? If you're doing an economic development deal, is there a way to make sure that somehow those vans or use of those vans? I mean, the idea is we really need to get in a room and start to think creatively about where there is undercapacity and how we can turn that into better use. For example, my center is in Plum. We're right near Westmoreland County. they have very few services. I can't tell you how many people from Westmoreland County I'm serving at Plum, but I can't take my seniors in Access 10 miles into Westmoreland County to go to a play, because Access will not go beyond the borders of Allegheny County, which could, I mean, there are things that, as we all know, the bureaucracy gets in the way of, that we need to be able to build in flexibility for people to make decisions, or, you know.
Yeah, and that's why a regional approach would really be
Yes.
an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, because I mean, I know, for example, Tom Weber's in the audience, and he always does an amazing job at our Lincoln Place community meetings trying to get people to come to the Hazelwood, because, I mean, as the crow flies, I mean, it's a 5-minute drive, right? It's right there. But the reality is the transit from 31st, I mean, if you have a car, it's fine, but the transit from the 31st Ward into Hazelwood just isn't there. And of course, and I know I hear this a lot in Lincoln Place, like, well, we want a senior center, but it's just not, I mean, just where we are, like, to build a new senior center, I mean, that would be, I don't know, what, $15-20 million. What could we do with that? You know what I mean? With much less money, to just get people where, you know, just get people from the neighborhood to the centers that we already have.
And this is why the setup for the city is going to look and probably be very different from the suburbs. Because the city has proximity, it has partnership, it has resources close. Where we get into the suburbs, we don't always have that. So that setup is going to look different. To maybe put a great big facility in the city is not practical. And that's the things that we have to think about. What is best for the locations and for the types of services that are being provided? And what are the resources that we have there? But it's going to take all of us looking at that and being objective and saying, this may work here, but it's not going to work over here. So what's the better way to do this?
And prioritizing it.
Right.
Prioritizing older adults.
Right.
I mean, I feel like there is so much potential for satellite. I mean, because we do have, I mean, that's the thing, in the city, we have churches everywhere. We have, you know what I mean? There are spaces. So the spaces we have, it's just the programming in the spaces.
And the staffing of the program.
right.
Right, the
Right.
staffing,
Right.
right, the funding. As we talked about, it's stagnant. We're getting the same amount of money with no increases in a very long period of time, with cost of living.
How many years it's been?
You know, how many years?
2010.
2010, and we're living in the same amount of money, and it's less this year, and it's going to be less, and that's our concern. How do we provide extra services? How do we get extra staff to do this?
But I
It's
think
great.
there
I
are
think it's great.
solutions. Like, you know, my response is not hand-wringing. My response is, you know, we have some of the most flush philanthropic community in the country right here. What if, you know, the city and the county came together and said, you know what, we're going to focus on a strategy for older adults for the next year, really come together, put together a strategy, and then, you know, bring together the philanthropic community, bring together the healthcare, because they're benefiting from the supports and the services that we're providing, keeping people out of the emergency room. Area Agency on Aging cut readmission to hospitals in half through one of our programs. We saved I'm not going to name them, our partner, $10.5 million over the past 2 years, and we earned a national award for business innovation. So we are having a return on investment that is tangible. And what we're saying is honoring the work by coming together and being advocates and supports. Even just convening the conversations would be an awesome start.
Yeah, and to manpower, in the last 2 years, 6,826 volunteer hours at Plum. And there are people out there when they're retiring looking for things to do. These are our Meals on Wheels. I'm able to deliver Meals on Wheels at a more costly rate than those that have to hire drivers because I have cost effective. Thank you. Words matter. Cost effective way to deliver Meals on Wheels through volunteers. So the centers, like right now, we are hungry for people who want to come in the centers and lead craft classes or share their wisdom if they were a professor. So being able to build this out to give this programming will help Luann. It will help all of us if we can build this collaboration.
I need to say something good.
Yeah.
I want to thank the Hillman Foundation for their investment in older adults, in the work that we've done through Senior Centers Reimagine Innovation Management Partnership Institute, SCRIMP, and also in the work that they've done with Age Friendly. I just want to thank them for that.
And then also just, because we touched on technology, so where are we? Because that is a huge thing, right? If Social Security is moving to online only or potentially, I know that we have banks that are closing. I mean, we tried to do that in Greenfield to get First National. They closed their banks and then to come in and sort of teach people, you know, it wasn't, it was just a one-time thing. So
We had that
we have the
period.
computers. I don't know. Do
During
we have
COVID.
computers in the rec centers
Yeah,
and
with
things?
senior centers in the city, we
see.
do have computers that the seniors could use. But during COVID period, and the county as well, they were issued free laptops. All they had to do was come in, apply, and then back at our centers, we taught them how to use it. We could use that again if we can get funding for that to come back in, because those laptops are kind of old now and expired, and they need updated. I just had somebody bring that to my attention. How do I get a new laptop? Do they still have that program? And then the seniors are learning how to use them and have learned inside our centers. We have instructors come in and teach them how to use their cell phones. All of that, we've been working really hard to do that. So yes,
Anything
that's a
electronic.
great point.
There was actually recently there was an initiative across the county, a digital equity, digital literacy network, and basically what happened was a couple dozen nonprofits, for-profits, and social service agency offices came together to put together an approach for the county. Now, we were not successful in that application, but what that showed me was that we have the infrastructure existing to do that work. Here again, it would just take will and probably some funds to get it moving. But what I've noticed, because the Area Agency on Aging through DHS has applied for and been successful with 3 federal grants. And the one that we were not successful with, what I did was I looked to see how much of the funding was in kind and how much of it was actually coming from federal sources. And what I found was that basically 75% of the grant was in kind. And we needed that small amount of the resource just to cover things that we couldn't cover. But my point is that we are asset rich. We just need to align and get the support and advocacy.
Yeah, and then just one last thing, and this is not exact, but it's just to touch a little bit on housing, because we do talk a lot about housing. Just to ask if you all have any insight. I'm very curious just about, and even if it's anecdotal, but sort of folks living alone versus folks living in multi-generational families, and then also how much, for folks who are living in multi-generational families, how much those families are also depending on the benefits that the seniors in their household are.
Yeah. We definitely have those data at DHS.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have them at my fingertips right now, or even my laptop in front of me. But I can get those for you. You wanted to know how many people are living alone, and we definitely have that. And then, we also know that within the Area Agency on Aging, our communications platform is sending out messages in 18 different languages. But we can definitely get that for you.
Okay, yeah, I'm just, because we're having lots of conversations around housing and tax and then, and it would be, that would be interesting information to understand.
Okay.
Is,
Yeah,
the
we
sort
could,
of,
yeah, our
the
analytics
financial
team can pull that.
position of seniors who either own their house or if they're renting or that kind of thing, just to, yeah.
Can I just touch base very quickly about this subject? Seniors, and I'm not going to say too much. The seniors, when I go to the centers, some of the high rises, the senior high rises where our seniors are living, not in all cases, some cases, it needs to be investigated. It needs to be looked into further.
You're talking about safety.
Safety.
She's
Yes.
talking about
Oh.
the issue of
Right,
safety.
the safety.
Safety.
They don't
That's
feel
that's
safe.
one of my questions.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We need to investigate that. I've heard some stories from seniors, and it's a concern. So if we can maybe have somewhere where we have a conversation further about this and
called
get
for a
some
post-agenda on
assistance. Pardon me?
I called for a post agenda on it.
Thank you very
wonderful.
much,
Thank you.
because I brought it to the councilwoman's
you.
attention. Yes, it's very important, so,
Yeah, I know we have some residents from Glen Hazel here. It's an issue.
yes, so that'd be
Both
great.
security and also just things like the elevators working.
Yes,
It's
yes.
Or having
countywide.
hot water.
Absolutely
Or- yeah.
countywide. I mean, we're
Heat.
looking at, in West Mifflin, a whole housing complex. It's been on the news, how the folks living there
Well, you
in
had
deplorable
something, didn't you?
conditions.
Yeah, we know Councilman Mosley's been taking the lead on some of that as
Yeah,
well.
Same
company.
It is,
Same thing.
I just want to touch base.
Same company that owns
Yeah.
West Mifflin, Homewood House.
right,
Belfield.
same company.
So I just want to mention, I'm sorry if you don't
No,
mind.
no, no, yeah,
that
of course.
Councilman Mosley also had a post agenda on that very subject.
Thank you for raising those issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you all
Thank
very
you,
much. I
Councilwoman.
appreciate it. Yeah, that's all for me. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Councilmember. We have Councilperson Charlin next.
All right. Thank you so much for being here today. I know that I have some really awesome active senior centers in my district, some of which are city funded, some of which are not. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So two of my more active senior groups are not affiliated with the city. And I think it's, I can't overstate what you were referring to earlier of the concept of community and how important that is for our seniors. I had two grandparents pass during the pandemic, and although ultimately the cause of death was COVID, it really was loneliness, and the difference in that the sense of community, makes a person in terms of their mental faculties, in terms of reason for taking care of themselves, all the things that go with that.
They made me out of my mind, but okay.
Well, didn't take much. but I say that to say, the sense of community that comes from those community centers is so important. And my city-funded senior centers are fantastic. I'll never interrupt bingo there again.
Yeah, they take.
Did you learn your lesson?
I made the mistake once, and that was all I needed.
I do love that, yes. Bingo.
They really do.
Don't
And they really don't care about the city councilman coming to talk to them. They
at all.
they want to get on to the next round.
But you're calling the numbers.
Yeah,
Raising the
exactly.
jackpot.
So, but that being said, so Allentown Senior Center that I have on East Warrington operates in the bottom of Hilltop United Methodist Church. It's a fantastic senior center. They do a lot of great activities there, but they let me know last week that they are in danger because they don't have enough people coming through, and the average they need to hit to still be receiving funding is 50 people a day.
45.
Okay.
It's a focus.
They don't hit that either. So they're usually somewhere in like the 25 to 30 range. And I'm really worried that we're going to lose this senior center that is, a super important part of my district with an aging population. What can we do about that?
That's a Those are the issues that we're tackling.
Yes.
Because the reality is, my background is as a researcher. And I've also spent 20 years in nonprofits in the community in Homewood, and now I'm in government. So I have 3 different lenses that each come together to help me to navigate the world that we're in right now. When I look at the numbers and I look at the cost per unit, it is very difficult to justify a $2,000 per unit cost and a $400 per unit cost. It is difficult to put a value on someone's well-being. It is difficult to put a value on someone not being alone. At the same time, we've been saying ad nauseum, our funding is flat. And I have to be a steward of the resources that we have to make sure that they are going to spaces where they are going to have the greatest, best, and highest use and impact. I believe strongly that if we can come together as a network, better utilize the supports and assets that we have in our region, come together as a collaborative and write grants to philanthropy, help them to elevate the importance of older adults in their portfolios of funding. If we can put some support and encouragement to our MCOs for them to recognize that being a good neighbor includes being supportive of senior centers out of some of the funds that they're receiving in profits and what they're doing. If we can tap each of these different buckets of assets, then we will have enough. But we need your support to do that. I don't want any of the senior centers to have to close. And I always say we don't close senior centers at all. But what I have to do is have a standard so that when we're laying out, look, this is a contract with DHS. You're contracted to provide this service to this number of people for this amount of money. I wouldn't pay $1,000 for that can of water right there, no matter how much the person needed $1,000. It wouldn't be a good use of funds. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think one of the other things, and we have a facility in Knoxville. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we may do is look at how do we work together. Perhaps we consolidate those centers so that the few people we have over here that is less than a mile away from where you are, we use our resources and they go over there. So those are the things we're thinking about now. How do we rework the best use of our resources? Instead of saying we have to do this one here, this one here, this one here, and we're all in this circle area, why don't we do this all here and have 50, 60, 70 people attending rather than 10 here, 30 here? Let's put them together and make the best use of the funds that we have with the resources that we have. The proximity makes a difference. Mm-hmm. And who are the resources that we have that we can make the best use of putting that all together?
And that's why we convened the SCREMP. That's why we brought everybody together, because there was no opportunity for all of the administrators to come together and have these conversations. And that's why we did it, because we're like, we've got to do things differently.
And, I understand that in some ways this conversation actually kind of closely resembles the school closure conversation, or the school consolidation or right-sizing conversation. Mm-hmm. My concern is similar to the concern that I have there, where when we combine senior centers, some seniors don't like being around each other. And there's the bullies.
Some of us are at the table.
Yeah, but I mean,
even bingo might not heal that.
Right, exactly, and I know that there's a reason why some of the senior centers, separate from each other, because this is a group that gets along together, and this is a group that doesn't.
Yeah.
And I do worry about what that might mean. Does that mean that this group doesn't come at all anymore, or?
Well, there's lots of hours in a day,
Yeah.
and there's lots of ways to have the resources be flexible enough to serve both groups. And just because we've always done it this way, doesn't mean we always need to continue to do it that way. Can we find a better way to do this that makes everybody happy and meets all the needs and makes us fiscally responsible for what we're doing? You know, it's going to be a lot of conversation. And are we, you know, do we have another provider to work with, you know, Luann or somebody to say, you know what, you do all the other services in this area, you would probably be the better provider for what we do, because you have other places close by in proximity that they could go to the swimming pool, they could go to a gym, and we could set it up.
Councilman Charlin, I hear what you're saying, and that's an important message, because we have, that's why I said there's 90 distinct communities, and the seniors do feel that way. And, you know, it was a good message I heard from you, because will they go? We have seniors that won't go across a bridge to go visit another
Go from
center.
Sheridan to West End.
Yeah, they won't go. Oh, yeah. They refuse to go. They're not crossing. They don't like those people. They don't like what they do or something, or they just don't like the whatever it is about it. And that is an issue. That how do we capture them to make them part of another center? How do we introduce them to being part of another center? We've done, okay, for an example, when we closed West End Center for repairs, and we had Sheridan Center, we had the Sheridan Center, West End, some of them went to Sheridan. Others refused to go. They would not go. So it's something we need to ponder and consider, how do we make that work? Because that's unique to, I think, our different communities in the city. So we need to think about that more, so we don't lose those people and we can get them there. And one of it's transportation.
Sure.
That's important. If we get transportation, that'd be excellent. Excellent. So, yes.
And
So there are ways to make it
We're going to face that
work.
in the suburbs, like Plum is close to Oakmont. We're trying to look at eastern suburbs. There's a way to like wean people into that cooperation, whether it's visits together with the cultural district, whether it's collaborative things. And then you identify the people who are the leaders that might build the bridges among those groups. Does that something that happen overnight? But is it better to have a center that offers the hot lunch, that offers all the programs, that is the front door within your community? I think begrudgingly at the end of the day, they'll want to go somewhere, given the resources that we have.
And I do
We
hear
just gave you more
great things about the
time, yeah.
lunches, especially that they have whatever they were before to compare to what they are now. I'm not
Yeah,
exactly
I
sure all
would
the things that
encourage
changed, but
any-
everyone says how great they are.
Yeah, I would encourage any elected official to go have lunch. I mean, they are considerably, the county put they went through a whole recontracting thing for both the home delivered meals and the hot lunches, and they are significantly better than they used to be. The menus are published, you know, a couple months in advance. Go and taste them. Sit down and enjoy one, because they are good.
You'll probably want seconds. I'm just telling you. They actually are very good.
Yes.
I'm really proud. I mean, that's part of the problem, because we recognize that we want the meal to be something that you want to eat. And of course, in order to do that, you have to increase the amount that they can invest in each meal. So we had to increase the unit cost, which of course now they love them, but more people want them, and we just don't have enough money.
I'm always offered them when I go visit the senior centers, but like any good elected, when the people are eating, that's the time that I need to work. So, but no, I do. You know, like I'm concerned about this. I've got a large senior population, and I have a senior population that has still not really come back after COVID. That, you know, the Southside Market House used to be booming. It is not booming in the same way. Even Allentown and the Beltsuver seniors, there's just the population is not where it was before. There's just not a level of comfort or.
I can tell you from being the Meals on Wheels provider in that area, many of the folks went to getting Meals on Wheels.
Yeah.
The numbers in that area have done this.
Yeah.
And folks, just, they're eligible to stay at home now. They're aging in place, and they're not rebounding. They're not coming back to the center. The numbers of home-delivered meals in that area has increased.
And that is the impetus behind the innovation work.
Right. Yeah.
Because we know that the population is percentage-wise increasing, and we also know that unless we help to encourage, we know that, there's research that shows that two people can be twins and live in two different parts of a city and weigh up to 5 pounds different just because of the built environment. And we know that it matters having locations that people want to go to. And that is why we're taking such a hard look at the type of services that we provide and being attractive. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
So
The environment.
I'm excited that you have these questions, because what this says to me is that you care about this. I would love to invite you to be part of some of the working groups that we do, just to get your feedback and input.
Sure. I realize the other members have questions, and I'm hogging the time, but I do. Your question here in terms of where you mentioned the ratio changing from folks on Meals on Wheels to folks at centers. I instinctively want to fight that. I want more people to come to the centers than go to Meals on Wheels.
Absolutely.
But am I right to want that, or should I just say if this is what people want?
Yes, because it's more than just a meal.
Yeah.
It's all what I talked about today.
You're
I talked
absolutely
about
right
that.
to want
If
that,
they
but we've
come-
got to
yeah.
give them something that they want to come to
Healthy.
come out of their houses.
Plus,
Yeah.
we identify their
you
vulnerabilities.
struck
If
something
they're
there.
living, if they're living,
Yeah.
if they're living at home and we don't see them at a center, we will never have the capacity to go visit them in their home. We do a great job with home delivered meals to look at their change of condition when we deliver that meal, but we want them to come, because when you're engaged and you're less lonely, you are more healthy. So you are absolutely right,
Right.
to delay people going to home delivered meals. I worry about the whole strategy of keeping people in their homes. If we're looking at housing in America, maybe we need to be looking at really how we build housing. Building communities that link people to each other, right? We have people here living in their homes that, like my daughter is miles away now. Many of the family members are no longer, especially in Pittsburgh, due to the mills. These people are alone, aging in place, and it might be nice to be in your house, but maybe using that resource where they're moved into communities that are more lively and engaging, and then a young person can buy that house. There's a whole conversation that could be had about that.
Yeah, we're entering a conversation here about the Loop program. That's kind of the argument against Loop, is that it is beneficial. I've got. He wouldn't mind that I mentioned his name. So Mr. Sims, who lives on Orchard, he's an old Korean War veteran. Unfortunately, his wife passed away before she was supposed to take care of his things. She didn't get a chance to, and now Mr. Sims is in a house by himself, and he cannot take care of it. And I really just want him to downsize and move in with someone else, and it just and someone else could raise a family there, and it's.
Well, Dr. G, you've heard all kind of creative things
Yeah.
what they're doing in other communities. She can speak to that.
I was actually sitting here thinking just that.
I should speak up now.
I should probably say something. The SHARE program, that's one of the programs that actually is a Pennsylvania Department of Aging program that we've recently brought to Allegheny County. We're in our first 6 to 9 months of it, but basically, we have these beautiful homes that have multiple bedrooms, and we have people living alone who would benefit from not only sharing in the expense that it costs to keep a house up, but also having someone there to share life with. And that's what the SHARE program is about. So, if you can encourage your friend to want to participate in that program, we would love for him to be a home sharer, and he would also bring in some resources and income for himself as well.
We'd love to try. he's an old veteran. There's not a lot of talking to him about stuff, but
That's why I tell my story about people, the companionship that happens and the friendship to remove the loneliness that you talked about, that you experienced.
Yeah.
The message is really important that we send that out and get it out to seniors. Come back, come stay, come visit a senior center. So they have that companionship. They feel better about themselves. They have purpose. They live better. They have friends. They're not sitting there just eating that meal that's delivered to them and be lonely. They have places to go and things that are happening there. I mean, one of our big things that we do line dancing at our place, and so many people, they love that. They're coming out for line dancing. Homewood Senior Center is filled to capacity. We're going to provide more of that. So there's a lot of programs that people need to come out. And just to be honest about what I talked about before, we are using our vans and taking seniors to visit the other centers, right? So they can be exposed to what the other centers have to offer. And it's been going really well. I mean, we can fit like 13 people on a van. So we want to expose them. If we take them and we can transport them and bring them back, and they can go over and partake on something, maybe a party they're having, maybe some event they're having that day, is really, we've been trying to get them to
Break down the walls.
break down walls.
Break
We're
down the
trying.
walls.
We're trying to do it with ourselves. It's a
Yep.
struggle, but maybe that's something for your center that you're talking about Allentown.
Yeah.
You know, can we bring them to one of our centers? We have our vans. Maybe we can do that or find a way, which would be great. Wonderful to share.
well, I could talk about this a lot longer. I want to shamelessly plug that I am the youngest council member, but I am very committed to this. So please sign me up. Count on me. I'm excited for this and continue this conversation however I can help.
Thank you. I
Because
appreciate
this
that.
is
Thank you.
Work with us
really
to
important.
reimagine.
Yeah.
Gives us hope, because you guys are going to be the future. So
Yes.
thank you.
That's right. That's right.
In fact, you're the present.
All right. Well,
We all
I
go
look
there.
forward to talking more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to Councilman Mosley next.
Thank you all for being here, and thank you, for your comments. Like many of the members, this issue is extremely important to me. I took care of my mother for 20 years before she passed. I was her primary caretaker, and actually today would be her 90th birthday. She was still with us. Today's your birthday as well? Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
It's almost my birthday,
Okay. And
31st.
and to complete the circle,
We'll celebrate
Yeah.
at El Casino, okay?
Mine's the beginning of the month.
and to complete the circle, this Saturday was my 49th birthday. As I get closer and closer, I saw that age 60 thing. I was like, wow, I'm not that far away. That seems so far away. Not too long ago, and my father, knock on wood, God willing, will be 99 in July. So, and I have 3 siblings that are in their 70s. So I'm the
Yeah,
baby.
good genes.
I'm not the youngest member of
Yes.
council, but I'm the youngest member of my family. So
You look like the youngest.
I can just relate to, kind of observing the aging process. So, my first question is I was really struck by the one, statistic that you shared, about, how Americans tend to have like the longest period of poor health, as they age. I was just curious, even though we're, kind of dealing with the micro level, looking at things from a local, perspective. But, first question is, why is that? And, what at the national level, other countries are doing to shorten that poor health period, as people go through the aging process?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That's been something that's been, it's been very almost painful to watch because, I do a lot of traveling. And when I go to different places in the country and around the world and I see the disparity, I come back home and I come to the Pittsburgh airport, and even before you get on the plane, you can almost tell who's from Pittsburgh. You can tell, by our level of weight. You can tell by, the spryness and the way we move. And I was actually having that conversation. I was like, wow, why is it that I can pick out Pittsburghers in an airport before we get to the gate? And it has to do with our way of life. We are more sedentary. We are eating foods that are higher in fat and higher in carbohydrates. We actually received we were awarded a federal grant called the Medically Tailored Meals Better Together program. And the first part of that was a pilot where we actually provided medically tailored meals that were focused on addressing chronic illness, diabetes, hypertension. And we got a lot of complaints from the older adults who were participating in that program because they were like, well, I don't eat quinoa, I don't eat fish, I don't eat these vegetables, I don't eat this or that. And that's part of the problem. Culturally, we have to make a shift in the way we're eating, what we're eating, and the fact that if you're going to eat this stuff, you at least need to move. And
the other thing, that 12.4 years is public policy all around. The way our government doesn't enforce healthy foods like they do in Europe. The lunches that we give to our children are not healthy. Our healthcare system isn't performing like other European countries. That's something we have to, as leaders and people who run these centers, we need to address that. That's why, we have the lower mortality rates, and where, what is the percentage of healthcare that is spent in the last 3 years of someone's life? It's an astronomical amount of money, and these other countries believe in prevention. We need to look, and we at senior centers are in the business of prevention, right? The silver sneakers, the daily healthy lunch, the fellowship, the brain games. Bingo keeps you young. I was going to get rid of bingo, I thought, when I first went to the center. But I learned. But that's what accounts for that difference, I think.
But those health and wellness, those prevention programs are actually the first on the chopping block. Major concern as the federal government is looking at the reauthorization of the Older Adults Act and looking at not only authorization, but allocation of funds. I'm going to DC next week. Today is you all, tomorrow is Harrisburg, and Monday and Tuesday next week is at the federal level. If those funds don't come through, the Older Adult Act does not specify how many senior centers we have to have. We only have to have one, according to the federal government. And if the funds come down to whether we're going to provide food and protective services or senior centers, we have to follow the federal mandate and provide food and protective services. And if we're providing one senior center, we're checking that box. I don't think that's not acceptable, because I see the value of the senior centers, and that's why we're here talking to you all about this.
That's interesting. And in your experience, speaking to my colleague's point about trying to get folks, out of the house, and in more, communal environment, so to speak, because I think, to your point, I had the opportunity to spend some time in Europe, this past summer, and some of the things that you notice immediately is the amount of multi-generational interaction. One, because of the plazas and just the wealth of public spaces. Whether you're in Spain or Italy, but then you also see even folks much older just walking around. Obviously much more athletically fit. You see not as many people using supports to get around. Using whatever, the whole range of devices to get around and be more mobile. You notice those kind of things. But I'd be interested to know at a micro level, like what are the things that gets the person that's, doing more with Meals on Wheels and in the house, probably, watching Jenny Jones. I don't know if Jenny Jones is still on TV. That shows you how much. I watch documentaries. I bore my family. I'm primarily just watch documentaries or Star Wars. If it's not documentaries or Star Wars, I probably don't
Star
watch
Wars a documentary?
it could be. There's actually a great documentary about Star Wars, but I don't want to take us. I don't want to take us. It's called Building the Empire of Dreams. Whenever you get a chance, it's a great.
We should show that at a senior center, and you
Right.
can come talk. I'm
Absolutely,
going to invite you.
I would love to. I would love to do that. But
That
what are
would
the
be a
things? What are the things that entice folks who may have for 6 straight months done Meals on Wheels to say, you know what, I do want to get more social? Is there like specific enticements or marketing or things that you can do that you find is more successful at bringing folks back, into the senior centers and being more communal?
A big jackpot, huh?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a great question. And I think rather than perhaps having the solution, having an approach, one of the approaches that we've been using is using our Blooming Health platform to actually do surveys on their phones, asking them 3 quick questions. What are you interested in? Did you like this? What's your satisfaction level? So gathering information from them, and we can do more of that to help to get to those solutions. And then at the same time, reminding them of when the classes are. We have extensive data on the positive impact that using that particular platform has had on attendance at some of our wellness programs. So we have started with sending out those reminders straight to people's phones to let them know that line dancing is starting, lunch is being served, what's going on, and then also gathering information back from them to get feedback on what they would like to see.
And also being able to get them there.
And transportation.
And transportation,
It's a big
being
Gotcha.
able to get them there
Yeah, that's true.
is one of the biggest obstacles.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And having multiple strategies. The young woman that runs my Meals on Wheels program, Sam, we talk to the 90 clients or the 70 clients that we deliver to. We have thought about how can we get people to go get them and bring them to a lunch. And that will create some flexibility too, because they're going to still want to stay on home delivered meals, but we're going to have to be able to give them a congregant lunch, and you can only have 1 meal a day. So, but we'll find ways to work around that. But we could wean some of those more healthy people by going to get them, or if they're still able to drive, have them come back as a strategy. And given the amount, we have not done that, but there are probably other things we could be doing to do that. And this is a good thing for us to think about. We go back.
Yes.
Thank you. It's great.
And has there been like any, thoughts, particularly, given the reality of, Councilwoman Warwick had mentioned, just the cost of, brick and mortar construction and building, but, partnering, with PPS or even in the county with the other municipal, school districts, to try to move toward, us as a society, not looking at our schools as just schools, but kind of lifetime learning centers that at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they switch from educating 18 and under to, providing, other types of cultural enrichment, as well as it could be lifelong learning and other things for,
Yes.
There's my pitch.
adults,
Yes.
and senior citizens, because then we don't have to build new buildings. We have buildings,
You
all
are
over the
speaking
city,
our dream.
Yeah, what are
particularly in places
the
that
resources
don't
we
have
can partner with
the healthy,
to
active living
make
centers.
use of what already exists.
Yeah, and that's the type of vision.
Yes.
Like hearing you, Councilman, say that
Yes.
is inspiring to me that you're thinking that, because that is the kind of thing we talk
Yes.
about. So yes, if there is a building, there is a partner, and we would love to have that conversation and do that work with them.
And who all do we need to, be at the table? Because I think that's things that, we can begin working
Yeah,
on.
well, I can be a point person, and whatever you need that we have, it is yours, because we know that we are working for the same goal.
Yeah, we need a champion. It would be wonderful that the mayor and the county executive appoints, to use the work we've already done to appoint a commission or some sort of task force that has a discrete amount of time to look at these issues. And we bring in Hillman, who is great, or other foundations, or UPMC, or
And.
and
Not or, and.
Good point. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
We need all of these.
Right.
Yeah.
All
Well-
of these to make the difference.
And we're doing it for ourselves. I'm 52. I'm 8 years away. In fact, I'm 2 years older than some of the centers that, they start accepting people at 50.
Right.
So we're not doing
Yeah.
this for others. It's for all of us.
Right.
I often ask myself,
As
what
youngest
would it take? What would it take for me to go?
Yes.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
what would I be wanting to do there? And that's the question we all need to ask ourselves. What would make me want to go there is what we need to be looking at.
You should come with us.
Yeah.
We should go. Yeah, we
need to
you need
take
to
a
go.
road trip.
Yeah, we need to
a
take
road
you to
trip,
Rochester.
just so you can see what else is available, what else is happening. Of course, you're going to see Cadillac. You're going to see. I'm not going to say Tesla, but you're going to see really like Bentley.
But remember,
And you're
OPC
also-
started in a school.
And you're going to see things that are attainable now that we can build on, which is
Correct.
the point that Jenny is making.
Yes.
It started in a school, and look at where
They
they are.
outgrew it, and then now they're at 90,000 square feet with gymnasium, walking track, swimming pools.
Pools,
Adult daycare in there.
bed,
I mean,
dinner,
it's
theater.
unbelievable.
And they started in a community together in a school. So how do we
By a
build from
woman
where
who
we are
delivered
here?
Meals on Wheels.
Yeah, she was a
started it.
driver. She was a van
driver.
We have it. That's the thing.
No, we had it with Tom Murphy. God, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for your comments, and I think that particularly the statistics that were shared, and I think it is incumbent upon us to come up with some regional strategies, given that we're going to be disproportionately impacted by, I believe you called it, is it the silver tsunami?
Silver tsunami.
And I should know that as much silver hair as I have.
It's a common.
Yeah, Dr. J, I got to figure out what you're doing, because I would have never guessed that you were 52. The fountain of youth must exist within the area agency of aging. That must be the secret.
living.
That might be the secret of AAA, because I'm still trying to figure out how I'm not even 50 yet, and I'm beyond you. I don't know. I'm like
Me?
Yeah. I'm with my son sometimes, and he's like, "Oh, Grandpa took the kids out for sneakers," So maybe that's just my sneak preview to get ready for what comes. But thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I look forward to working with you. I can coordinate with the councilwoman and other council members that are interested.
Yeah, don't forget the old one, okay?
Yes.
Age discrimination, the last acceptable form.
See, you got to hang around my dad. Like, you're not that seasoned. My dad, who'll be 99. Obviously, obviously your dearly departed mother, and my continued condolences on your recent loss.
Yes.
You know what it's like, but when you have a parent that age, they just remind you how, you're still a baby.
Yeah.
So that's the one luxury of having an older parent. But Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you. And before I get to some questions of my own, Councilwoman Cale Smith.
Thank you. And I'll just have to say to his comment about the gray hair of mine, I was telling Councilwoman Strasburger a few weeks ago, somebody said to me, "I love your blonde highlights." I said, "They're gray. There's gray hair coming in." She said, "Are you going to do something about it?" I said, "You loved it when you thought it was blonde. Now you want me to do something about it." So, and my mother did just pass away at 103. And her sister,
Longevity, right? Yeah.
her sister passed away at 98. She was about 98, I think. Well, my mother, every day she would, go to church, take care of people. She was just always doing everything right, ate healthy. My aunt cursed like a sailor, drank like a fish, and smoked a hookah, and she lived to 98. So, I just think whatever's in your genes is in your genes. I'll be sorry I said that later, I'm sure.
It's a 5-year difference.
Yeah.
Might as well live.
Well, I'll tell you which one had more fun.
Okay.
But I will say that I appreciate all that you do, and I do worry a little bit about some of the things that I heard around the table here. I worry about housing, and when we talk about the affordable housing in the city of Pittsburgh, one of the things I think we failed to have a conversation about is housing for seniors, because we have in Fairywood, we built patio homes, and they're the only type of patio homes in the city of Pittsburgh. Affordable patio homes, affordable for the next 40 years. But they have a waiting list of over 500 people already, and they just were
amazing.
built. So, I mean, there's a need for that type of house. So when you're talking about housing, we're building, and we're talking about building all sorts of, affordability and all sorts of big buildings, but we're not really building them for what the seniors really want. They want to live on their own. They want to have their little patio. They want to have the space, but they want to be near in a community, a senior community, where they can feel comfortable and safe. And this place has a rec center or a community center across the street, and they have all kinds of things in that facility. It's almost like their own little senior center in that facility. But we used to have anyway. I just wish we'd have that conversation a little bit more about what we can do there, and. In our senior centers, I have to say, they are amazing. We have amazing people. Luann, you, the director, your whole team.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, our staff? How
yeah,
wonderful.
the ones that you have with you today. Who do you have? You have. I see.
Oh, I said we had Director Vargas with us, and I have Ed Ulrich with us.
Ed,
He's
I
a
couldn't see.
program
Okay.
supervisor, yes.
Thank
He
you.
does a great job.
He
goes
does.
around. He's
And so-
always out and
yeah.
about with everybody.
I just want to acknowledge the
Thank
work
you.
that you all do from the top level,
Thank you.
but in the centers they
amazing,
are
huh?
unparalleled. I mean, they are amazing.
Yes, they work hard.
and
They love what they do.
They do, and people love them because they feel that love when they go there.
They care about their seniors, right?
do.
They talk to them, want to know about them.
They do.
listen.
I would tell you, we had a reopening of the West End Senior Center a few weeks ago,
Yes.
and I walked in, and I'm looking around, and I see this table of old men, and I said, "That's my husband. He fits right in." It was like shocking to me at first, but then I started paying attention to what they were doing. I'm thinking, well, no wonder he'll probably love it here when he
Oh,
retires,
yes.
because he's going to retire soon, and I'm going to retire soon. So we're either going to end up at two different senior centers or two different houses. I don't know which one. But anyway, but I do want to talk a little bit about the Medicare and how that's punitive if you don't apply by a certain day. Do you inform the seniors of that kind of stuff at the senior centers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have people come in and
workshops all the
speak on
time.
it.
So they know that ahead of time. I
All
didn't
the
know
time.
that.
Speak.
So that's one of the reasons to go to a senior center, to find out what
Yes,
because if
yes.
you don't apply on time,
Right.
you have a payment. It's like punitive. You have to pay for the rest of your life, right?
Yes,
Uh,
we have
once a
people
month.
come in all the time and speak. We have
Right.
speakers come in, and that's one of the areas that we bring them in. And we have them on our calendars listed every month who that speaker will be for the day. And we do a lot on this Medicare, Medicaid programs, safety in the homes, driver safety.
Even
They
Medicare
love
Part
that.
B, every year you can reevaluate what your plan is. So we have sessions that we schedule for seniors to come and sit down to look at their Part B to see if they're getting the best deal to supplement their Medicare.
And
With people who
we
know,
talked a little
not
bit about
just-
that at our last internal meeting. We had somebody there that was talking a little bit about some of that.
Yes.
I think. But I just think those are reasons for seniors to go to the centers.
Yes,
Because you can
yes.
see and get those resources that really do matter to your
Sure.
own your own cost.
Yes.
And so I think letting people know that those kinds of things are available. I think it's really challenging because a lot of people are not on computers. And I don't know if you know this, but I gave the first computers to the senior centers in the city of Pittsburgh. When I
didn't know
worked for
that.
Pittsburgh Public
wonderful. That's
Schools,
good.
Pittsburgh
Yeah.
Public Schools donated refurbished computers, and I distributed them to the senior centers. And I went over to Sheridan, and there was a woman in Sheridan who couldn't wait to show me what she learned. And she takes me over to the computer, and she was in a wheelchair, and she takes me over to the computer, and she goes, "Look," and I look, and it's her face on Holly Berry's body. I said, "You're supposed to be learning how to send an email."
But that was more fun.
But now they know all. I mean, they know a lot. I mean, they come
Yeah,
in with
we've taught them.
smartphones and all sorts of
Right.
things. So it's good to see how they've progressed. But I would love to see us do more with computers with the
Yes.
seniors and maybe
we have
working with
we have a
CMU.
woman coming up. We have a woman that's been in our senior centers. We've been working with her for like 2-3 years now, and she's she goes into to different centers. She's at Mount Washington now. And so she sits there and spends time. Anybody that has any phone issues, any questions, how to set up different things with banking,
Yeah.
she's there to teach them how to do it. So
I love that, but I would like to see them get computers,
Well,
laptops or something.
The other thing to consider.
Maybe CMU is what's
More
missing.
and more, as opposed to a computer, more and more people, older people are using their phones.
That's what
And to the county's credit, Dr. G did get that service, Blooming Health, that we're able to text. So they're getting more, they agreed to get texts from us. So that is going to help improve that literacy as well. And we schedule appointments for people to come in to learn how to use it. But more and more people want to learn how to use an iPad or a tablet or a phone as opposed to like a laptop kind of thing.
Yeah, we do programs and we offer it called Bring Your Own Device. And then all of our centers have the same guest wireless so that they can come in with their devices and at any of the sites hook up to the same wireless and sit there, and we have programs.
But I wonder if
whatever
you can talk
they
to
bring in.
the schools or whomever, like we did back when they were refurbishing the equipment, if you could talk to them about maybe getting some of those computers as they refurbish them. Or the city at one point was talking about, but I don't think we ever did. And the other thing I would think is, talking to CMU, because but when I hear you talking about funding, as a senior, as somebody who's getting ready to retire, I'll be 66 this summer. I think, I hear you talking about all this stuff that you need, and I hear dollar signs in my head and what that's going to cost a senior. And so I wonder if, you increase the taxes in the county 37%, right? 37. Do you get in, what does DHS get from that funding? Do you know?
I know that aging our funding comes primarily through Pennsylvania Department of Aging. I think the total is about $2 million of the $40 million that we receive that we get from like county funds. It's not the county, but it's like the matching funds that we get from the state.
And then when I hear the transportation, and here's as a senior what I'm hearing. People need more money for this, more money for that, more money for this, and all I know is it's adding up for seniors, and they can't afford to buy their medicine and their groceries and the things that they need. And yet I see us. I'm ready to have a Boston Tea Party. I feel so upset for seniors and for people that are struggling. I mean, there's people of all ages struggling. And when I hear the shuttles or the buses and transportation and cutting those back, but increasing fees, and I know a lot of this is to draw attention to what's happening on the federal level, but they're causing such anxiety to seniors and to people that are struggling every single day. And I think there has to be a better way to do this. I think the way that we've done things all these years is absolutely not working. And I've heard, we had Dan Friesen, who was our council solicitor, used to say just because that's the way it was done doesn't mean that's the way you have to do it for forever.
That's it.
So I wish there were ways that we could do things that would bring you the dollars you need with being mindful of the money that we have. Like when you're talking about food, we have the Food Justice Fund. It's under, city parks. Is there a way we can work together with that program to get additional funding and additional meals? And I think you're doing that in some areas into the communities.
Yes, Catherine works on that program.
Yeah. Director Vargas works on that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Carl.
And I think you're working on some of that. So I want to say that, but I want people to know that we're also being mindful of that. And I think that there's, right now, what I know is, I used to, when I worked for Pittsburgh Public Schools, I had a program called, it's actually started by Nancy Hornsby. I don't know if you know Nancy Hornsby. She worked for Pittsburgh Public Schools at the time, and she ran a center up on the Hill. And she started a program called the Second Time Around Grandparent Program, because there are a lot of grandparents now raising their kids, grandkids. And so I'd like to see resources, coming in, more of those types of resources, because I think it's so frustrating for, sometimes it's just knowing how things are changed from when you raised your kids to now, and the things that were acceptable that are no longer acceptable, and that sort of stuff. So I'd love to see some of those types of programs and more intergenerational dialogues. And so when you talk about having the programs in the schools, I would love to see that. And Tom Murphy did do that. It was called the Community Enrichment Program, and I think Councilwoman Warwick is looking into something now. But this, every year we say we're going to look into it and, say we're going to make something happen. But I think it's the cost of all these buildings. Maybe there's a way to do all this, but it would be nice if we had shuttles taking people to and from some of the sites. Dwayne Ashley used to say all the time, and he was a great director of city parks,
Yes, he was.
and he would say we need to think of things as north, south, east, west, central. Like, and maybe instead of having swimming pools at every neighborhood and every place,
Yes.
that you put a really great water park,
Yes.
one in the
I
north
was
side,
part of
one in
that.
the west end, one in the South Hills, one in the east end, and one in central somewhere, like either the hill or downtown someplace, uptown. And that way you could have really great amenities and yet save taxpayer money, but yet and if you could get the shuttle services to and from or by transportation for city parks, you can get people to and from these things. And I just wish we'd start thinking about that kind of providing services in a really great way, but and giving some really great amenities to the communities that are unparalleled. You couldn't put them in every neighborhood. We couldn't afford it. Taxpayer. I tell people this all the time when they ask for so many different things that they want. We couldn't afford the taxes for all the things people are asking. We just can't. And if you raise taxes, people are upset about that too. Of course, for the county, maybe you could raise it 37% and we'd be okay. But I do think that for us locally, people are they're exhausted, they're broke, they're tired, and I think, if they had some more incentive for things that they're going through, and I think maybe giving people those options, like you mentioned, doing a survey, that might be more helpful. But what I would like to know is if you can give us a copy of the PowerPoint, because that was amazing. Yeah. And can I just say you wear so many hats, Dr. Gilliam. She's also the chair of Elcasan, the board of Elcasan, and we serve on that together. She does an amazing job there as well. But you're one of my favorites in your family, but your son is my absolute favorite.
I'm like, which son? We have so many.
I wanted Josiah
okay.
to run for my seat when I was done, and then he
I
moved.
love him. Yes. Love him.
I-
He's
yeah.
wonderful.
I want to say thank you because hearing you speak when you were saying, I wish we, what I was hearing you say is that these are the ideas. These are actually the strategies that we need to be coming around and partnering around to implement. And, you and each of the other council persons who spoke today, you've all talked about specific strategies that from your purview and your perspective, you would be able to help to convene the folks around the table, and we are willing to bring those resources from, Department of Human Services, from the community organizations with which we work. We will meet you there so that we can turn some of these I wishes into we did that.
And can I say, you mentioned the Hillman Foundation is one of my absolute favorite foundations, Hillman Foundation and the Dunlap Foundation, because I think they actually pay attention to what the needs are and not just what the political engagement is for the week. Right. And I do notice that there's more political engagement right now around this subject as we're finding out that there's more and more seniors in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County. And so I think now's a good time to ask for funding, and now's a good time to ask for the things, because for a little bit there it was a swing towards doing things with the younger people and what they want, and we don't want to forget them because one day they'll be old too, hopefully. And so you don't want to forget them, but there's you need to put some attention to the seniors, because I think for a little bit there they kind of started getting forgotten a little bit, and I think that this is something that, if you're thinking of a political career, you better start paying attention to the seniors. And I noticed today they went, I don't know if you noticed this, they went age before beauty. I came last. Just kidding. Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you for hosting this.
You're welcome. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, so I just want to thank you all so very much, and I'll thank you again before the end. I do have a couple of ideas I wanted to throw out there, a couple of questions, and I'll start by saying that. Let me actually start by saying that there are a couple of people who haven't been thanked yet, and those are the two coordinating individuals from kind of the panelists end and our offices end. Emily Francis from the Forbes Fund, who has done so much to help coordinate our conversations, the many conversations that we had over Zoom leading up to today's panel, and Patsy Boone in my office, who really did help to bring this together. I don't think she's still in the room, but and it was because I was invited along with some other elected officials to the 2-year kind of coming together of you plus many of your colleagues from around the county that I even got the idea to say, let's do a city county, post agenda and go from there. So thank you for that. And in that conversation, that was just one of many that you've all gathered at. There were ideas of the ways that the city could not just convene, but also take the lead as an example of an employer, right? We know that we were hearing that volunteers for the senior centers have gone down since COVID and not bounced back up, and that you could use everyone from people who are going to soon to be, at the age where they can take advantage as beneficiaries of the senior centers, and people who are professionals, right? They have an interesting skill to teach or a hobby, or could just volunteer in any way that they want to. What if, in the way that the city offers or in the past has offered paid volunteering for, big brother, big sister, if you could go and volunteer at a local senior center, right?
Yes.
That could be a way that as an employer and that was something that was an idea that kind of came from that gathering that you invited me to. Or this idea of employers in the city, not just the city as an employer, but like corporate, bigger employers in the city, giving incentives to employees who want to bring their aging parent or relative here. What if they paid for the moving costs? What if they paid for something like that, so that you're bringing people here and then there's all these great amenities? So things like that. What I'm hearing so much today is that you can throw money at an idea, and we could always use more and more and more money, but in a time with shrinking funds, we have to leverage that money more wisely, which is exactly what you're doing and innovating. There's more that we could do if we all get around the table with county council members, with, DHS and all of you, and, leadership at the executive levels at the city and county. I really think that this is just a taste of the ideas that we could, in a well-facilitated gathering, could throw up against the wall and really, start to operationalize. It's things like, as we talk about our school buildings, our senior centers, our rec centers, just even in the city as an example, right? Yes, how can we turn them into lifelong learning centers? How can we turn them into, the rec centers that also serve older adults, getting at the idea of loneliness in older adults, but loneliness for teenagers as well. Yes. And we're talking about, this epidemic of loneliness and how it's as unhealthy as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. Well, it's afflicting everybody at this time, post-COVID. So more intergenerational. How do we leverage our funds in terms of, I love that idea of that concept of east, west, north, south,
Yeah, that was
central,
Dwayne Nash,
right?
I wish I could take credit.
And, consolidating services as necessary, being very intentional about it. I think about the schools and as lifelong learning centers, and just in my district, both Pitt and CMU Osher have waiting lists. That does not need to be the case, because if we had Osher lifelong learning at all of our centers across the county, everyone would have access to it, and you wouldn't have to wait on a waiting list at Carnegie Mellon. So there's just so much that we could come up with, giving people purpose, giving people the ability to connect with one another, and then even when it comes to shuttles, I think about there's a UPMC shuttle, there's a CMU shuttle, there's a Pitt shuttle, there's probably an AHN shuttle. There's all these shuttles that we could be utilizing much, much more.
Yes.
Or coming up with some other transportation strategy to get people from here to there. So just scratching the surface. I guess the thing I did want to ask, in the vein of, Councilperson Charlin's no longer here, but I think it was the Brashear Association that I heard about that has older adults in the neighborhood calling parents of kids, school-age kids, to help with truancy and attendance and saying, hey, this is your morning wake-up call. Are you going to school? Okay, are you on time? And it's like this program that got national attention in the Hilltop neighborhoods. It's giving the older adults purpose. It's getting the kids to show up to school. It's helping the parents. Do you need anything? What do you need when you're trying to get to school? More of those types of things. Are there other ideas in the work that you do that you've seen be successful to connect generations like that, in addition to just having the third spaces like plazas and a built environment that facilitates it?
Yes. Probably about a year ago at this point, there's some effort that were going on in CYF around how can we support parents, of young children. And I had just done like a community data collection around how many of the youth that you're serving in your community youth development organization are actually being raised by their grandparents. And what I found was just in that convenience sample, there were 1,100 people in the east end of Pittsburgh who were older adults, grandparents raising their grandkids. So we were able to partner with a Second Chance to get those grandparents who really weren't aware of some of the parental support programs, get them connected to those types of efforts to be able to be responsive. Because I mean, hey, for some of them, it's been 40 years, 30 years, 20 years since they raised their kids. So that's just one initiative that we know was widely successful in that effort.
So I know in this, we've had Langley come over to Sheridan with the seniors, and we collaborate where they've done gardens together, which has worked out great. We've had Lawrenceville Senior Center. We had a group of, I forget what school it was, they would come over and do art and stuff with the seniors, part of their classroom work. So we try and work with a lot of collaborations like that to pair the seniors with the younger generation so they can see them and do things and talk to them and tell each other what's going on. Because I was part of a group when I was on one of our conferences, which I've talked about how great it is, where a young girl started this program with a professor, and they started it by they came up with this idea where seniors called families, the kids in the families, to talk to them because they can't always have time to talk to their parents, or they can't tell the parents the things that's happening in their lives. And that, from there, those relationships became like family members. And that grew to where there's such a waiting list of seniors wanting to connect with different adolescents, younger children, and it's amazing. It was the most fabulous thing I heard. That is wonderful for what you're talking about, Councilwoman, about the kids and the seniors getting together and being so helpful to everybody in the house and in the neighborhoods and communities.
In the partnership with schools like in Plum, when I first went out there, community service with high schools, right? They wanted to come wipe tables. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not. We're going to do like a program so that you're going to meet a senior. Like, so crafting community service with, right now we have every Friday, the special needs kids come and serve the congregant lunch. It's hard to climb the mountain sometimes in working with schools because teachers are so busy and all of that, but that would be a tremendous way. And now even with texting, we could get seniors to start texting kids that are lonely. Right. I mean, that would help. Yeah, we need to do more of that.
We work with the Boys and Girls Clubs.
Nice.
And one of the things we do is kind of a surrogate grandparent program. And for special activities and events, the kids come over and they spend time with the older adults. And they have their favorites, and they're adopted. That's their adopted grandparents because they may not have that in their life, in their family. So I think there are a lot of opportunities for older adults and younger children, adolescents, to work together. We just got to make it so that it can happen.
And clearly this is happening, and we need a forum for being able to share all the disparate ideas that are working and have that kind of happen on an ongoing basis. And maybe that is happening a little bit, but we're not hearing about it, and we're not able to. How do you scale it? How do you make it so that there's just this continuing innovation group and hub that shares ideas, not just in the kind of older adult serving population, but with local officials and state officials and more people in general. Yeah.
So I know we're coming to a close. I just want to thank you for inviting us to do this. You didn't have to. You could have just checked a box and moved on, but you didn't. So I thank you for going the extra mile for older adults. I also encourage you to just continue to invite us to the table. What I've noticed is that, oftentimes older adult serving network hears about things after the fact. We would love to be at the table in the planning of events, whether they're events downtown, events in our city, events in our public parks. But being a part of those conversations would be a welcome opportunity. I think about the Pittsburgh Marathon. I think about the idea of how do you scaffold someone into being more active? Well, what if there was a part of the Pittsburgh Marathon that actually had rollators, that had a rollator walk? So those are the kinds of things I would love to be at the table for that.
Build a community around the cheer sections, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that too.
Very needed, all the things. Yeah. Well, I don't have any brilliant closing remarks. There's so much that even just in a few hours we were able to brainstorm and think about and discuss and have dialogue and learn about. And so I think I'll suffice it to say more is yet to come. We will continue this conversation. I don't know exactly what it will look like, but I'm very eager, as are the colleagues that were here, and I'm sure those that weren't able to make it today too, to be part of this conversation on an ongoing basis. Thank you, Councilwoman.
No, thank you.
And for everyone who is here today
Thank
and
you.
tuning in online.
Thank you.
We will. Thank you for those who are joining us, who are serving this population on an ongoing basis as well every single day, and we will find a way to get a copy of the presentation and share that out to all council members and staff, especially for those who weren't able to make it. So with that, we'll make this official. Having exhausted the business of this post agenda, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.